Welcome to First Service Credit Union's free webinar, How to Create a Budget That Works for You. Budgeting may sound simple, but the truth is that many people fail to understand, create, and use a budget properly. Because you are a valued member of our First Service family, we want to change that by breaking down some budgeting basics that can keep you on track all year round. When we finish with the presentation today, I want you to feel empowered to apply what you've learned to take real control of your financial future with a budget that sets you up for financial success. If you have any questions today, please feel free to reach out to any of our branch members and we'll help you directly with whatever your current situation is. By the way, my name is Raven Maneggio and I'm the marketing coordinator here at First Service Credit Union. Today, we'll be joined by our Sugar Land branch manager, Brian Comeau.
Hi, how's it going today?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for that warm intro. Just a little bit about myself. I've been working in credit unions for about 10 years now. I've helped a lot of different members when it comes to looking over their finances and assisting with budgets. As myself, I've been a spender of money for a long time as well. So I think it gives me a lot of experience in what we're working on today. So today we're going to learn about what it means to understand a budget that will work for you, choosing the right accounts to meet your financial goals, and then sticking to your budget.
Today, you should have received a workbook that'll help you follow along with today's presentation. If for some reason you didn't receive that today, please feel free to reach out to marketing@fscu.com to receive your copy.
So the first thing that we're going to talk about is understanding how maintaining a budget helps you.
Brian, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to sit down and create a budget for myself. I really think my issue personally is that I don't know why I'm doing it. When I sit down and I write down the numbers, I just don't know where to begin. Have you come across that issue before?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about and address is some of the things that people struggle with when they're making budgets. And you bring up a very great topic is you need to know what it is you're working towards. And so for some folks, they think it's just writing everything down. And there's a lot more to it than that. One of the things we're going to work on is also dealing with some of the negative emotions that can sometimes come with setting a budget, because a lot of people think that means only they will have to limit what they're able to spend their money on. So the first thing we should talk about is, what is a budget? A budget allows you to create a plan towards what it is you're working towards. And it's not just something week to week to get you from one paycheck to the next, but kind of something that should include your long-term goals. Now, one thing that is important to note is that not every budget is one size fits all. As I mentioned, to have a good budget, it has to work for you and your situation. And that means finding one that fits you, your lifestyle, your income. By doing this, it's going to help you stay consistent and make something that really works for you and that you approve of. And it shouldn't be something that's a one and done kind of item. It should be something that you're going back to review and periodically update. Now, circling back around, why should you create and follow a budget? This is your first thing you said. And for a lot of folks, this is their number one thing that they get stumbled right out of the block on. And so this allows you to prioritize where your money is going and kind of what things are important to you, and then also help you identify some of maybe those more frivolous purchases or those pitfalls that a lot of people will stumble into. So budgeting reason number one would be having better control of your finances. You know yourself best. So when you say, I want to spend money towards a vacation, you might know that that means the most crazy exotic vacation on the most remote part of the world, or it might be something as simple as driving one state over and spending some time with some family. So everything that comes into a budget is really reflective of yourself.
Just so we're clear, I always want to spend money on a vacation.
That's a common thing, and it's one of the things we'll be talking about today. So the next budgeting reason that is probably very important for a lot of people and has a lot of those negative emotions associated with it is correcting harmful spending habits. So this is where you will see maybe those items where you're spending too much or where you could be doing a better job. And for some folks, that's a real turnoff when they see exactly how much money goes towards one certain area. The next thing is that budgeting will allow you to save for a big purchase. And this can be something like a vacation that we talked about. It might be a new car or a new home. Any one of those things is a big purchase that you might want to start budgeting now for to work towards in the future.
Yeah, for me, I'm trying to save for a down payment on a home, and it is just, where do I cut back? Yeah, I
Absolutely.
definitely need the help with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the next budgeting thing we'll talk about is reaching those financial goals. And that's going to be those long-term sort of maybe saving for a child's education, for your own education and retirement, of course. Those are things that are kind of on the horizon very far out. And that takes a lot of long-term planning for. And then the other budgeting reason that is really great is to prepare for the unexpected. And this could be something like maybe building an emergency fund or just having a little bit of extra around so that if something unexpected comes up, you can kind of handle that and address it quickly.
So basically, pretty much everything that we all dealt with in 2020 with the pandemic, a lot of people suffered from job loss. So it would have helped for sure to have some type of emergency fund on the back burner, is what I'm getting from that.
Absolutely. And having a budget is going to allow you to really begin to save towards that. So summarizing here, why should we create and follow a budget is going to be controlling your finances, correcting some harmful spending habits, saving for something big, reaching that long-term financial goal, and then being better prepared for the unexpected.
Today, we're going to introduce a poll to you. Why do you want to start a budget? I know for a lot of people, this answer is going to be different. So for me, I know my answer is C. I'm looking to save for a big purchase. Earlier said I'm starting to save for a down payment on a home, and I really want to get my budget down. So for you, take a mental note of why exactly you're starting your budget. You can even open up the workbook that we mentioned earlier and write this down just so you can come back to it later and see why this budget is important to you.
Yeah, and that's a great, it'll kind of serve as like a guidepost for yourself as to what it is you're working towards or where it is that's important to you, because a lot of the budgeting that we talk about is just about priority. So moving into this, let's talk about what causes us to overspend.
Amazon Prime has to be it.
Yeah. I know for a lot of folks it is. There's a convenience of it there, and there's so many options that are at your fingertips. And that's exactly what leads us into some things that can cause us to overspend here. So one avenue is stress. And we should take a moment to acknowledge that stress is a thing that has an effect on our finances. And you should definitely take the time to pay attention to your emotions. Making sure you have that budget in place is something that's going to help make you stick to that even when you want to deviate from it. And then it'll also allow you to celebrate the good, like when you have a moment where you've paid off something that you've been working on paying off for a long time, you should acknowledge that you've done something good. Find a way to treat yourself. Be wary of retail therapy. It is a thing and it is real. We have people who just get into stressful situations and try and spend money as a means by which to attain some level of happiness as part of it.
So what you're saying is I shouldn't go to Target whenever I'm feeling down?
It's no different for myself. It's going to the grocery store when I'm hungry. Suddenly everything in the world looks like it would be great in my cart. And then I get the bill at the end and I'm going like, how much money did I spend on this simple little trip to the store? Another reason we'll talk about is going to be social pressures and insecurity. This is an important thing to know, that we have pressures around us to try and kind of make it portray a certain image or give a presentation of some level of comfort. And this can be a stressful thing that can cause you to really overspend to keep up an appearance. And it's important that the expression, keeping up the Joneses, it's very real. And we see it a lot these days with social media, where someone has maybe this perfect life And we don't necessarily realize all the sponsorship that goes into that, the presentation that goes into that in order to appear that way.
Right. So what you're saying is your journey is your own.
That's a great way to put it. So another thing is avoid last minute purchases, impulse purchases. Anytime you're waiting to the last minute to make a purchase, you're going to have fewer options available to you. And you're also going to be stuck with whatever, whether it be a shipping cost or stock levels are available. You aren't able to really plan out your purchase and find the best deal. You're having to find what is available. So poor planning and procrastination can lead to overspending. And in this respect, whether it's something like having a car that you fail to maintain and now all of a sudden has had a larger issue that has to be repaired, or poor planning on your part where you just forgot maybe someone's birthday is coming up and now you have to rush out at the last minute to try and get them something. Poor planning and procrastination can lead to some overspending. So now for a bonus tip, let's talk about how we can be better prepared for the holidays. So throughout the year, one of the things I like to do is set aside some money. This way, little by little, I can start building up a fund of what I want to spend when it comes time to buy gifts. Another great thing is having your ideas about what you want to buy for people will allow you to shop throughout the year. For myself, I like to start my Christmas shopping over the summer. I look for deals that you might see or heading into back to school sales. And then I start to gather those things. And then when it comes time to be the holidays, I've already started a good portion of my shopping.
That's a really great tip because it feels like for me, the holidays always sneak up on me, even though it's the same time of year each year. So starting early, that just makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other thing to note is also don't discredit homemade gifts in any way. For myself, some of the best gifts I've received have been those ones that are homemade or have sentimental value that is not something that you can obtain from something at a store. And for those kind of items, whether they be handcrafted or anything like that, you start to have really a special attachment to those things, and it probably maybe didn't cost that person necessarily a lot of money. So let's move into our next section on some budgeting basics. Now, budgeting is never easy, but what we want to make sure is that we've empowered you enough to have some positive approach and a positive view of this. This way, how you approach it and that attitude will allow you to kind of move into this a little bit easier. So the first thing is we want to make sure that we identify some financial goals. So these goals could be something like getting out of debt, or maybe saving for a future purchase, maybe buying a car. It could be building an emergency fund, or like we talked about for yourself, making a down payment on a home. That's very important. That's probably the largest purchase you'll make of your life.
Oh, great.
Don't have those negative emotions though, right? So the first thing we want to do is take stock of income and expenses, and we want to be able to compare them side by side. Now, one thing is for most people, when it comes to income, they will very quickly be able to tell you exactly how much they make every year. And this is going to be things like your wages and salaries. It could be your bonus earnings or investment earnings. And it could maybe be anything like Social Security earnings. Now, another thing to note is on bonuses, make sure that you're not, if there's any question about those things, about how much they'll be for or whether or not they're going to be consistently there, we're going to want to err on the side of caution on that with our budget, because we don't want to say that, yes, absolutely, we're always going to be able to count on that bonus. And then when it doesn't come in, we've gone through and wrecked our entire budget. So another area of this is going to be something like gig work, where you might periodically take work to do a job.
So when you say gig work, are you talking about like Instacart or maybe driving for Uber on the weekends?
Correct. Yeah. I have some folks that I know that work to Uber just to kind of pay off a car faster, or maybe get out of debt or clear up some credit card debt. And then they took some time off from it, weren't really pursuing it. And then when they needed to, they jumped back into it. So therefore, they had some flexibility in their income to say, I have some extra income right now. I'm going to pay down these items a little bit faster. Now, determining your expenses. For as much as everyone can tell you exactly how much they make annually, you would be surprised how many people can't really tell you how much they spend on fuel in a given year. So it's important to break down really all of the different types of expenses you have. And some of these are going to be your fixed items, such as housing, maybe a monthly subscription service, any kind of loan payments. And then what of those are flexible? So we have some like utilities, and we have food and clothing and entertainment. Utilities is a big one here for us because the summers, the power bill looks completely different than what it looks like in the winter. And then of course we have those occasional that aren't going to be a part of anything that you would set regularly. So now we want to go ahead and create and maintain our budget plan. So what this is going to do is take all of the expenses and we're going to subtract that from our income. Now we'll be able to look at where we have areas that we can cut back and maybe better prioritize. We want to go ahead and review this on a monthly basis just to see how we're doing against what we set up. And then also allow us to kind of figure out where we need to maybe cut some things, adjust some things along the way, decide what's important for us.
So coming back to our budgeting workbook that you should have received today, and again, let us know if you didn't. You can reach out to marketing@fscu.com and we'll make sure to get that out to you. But just going back to it, I've already started using this, and let me just say, Brian, wow. I had no idea how much I was spending on some of just a lot of these expenses. So it puts it into perspective just what I'm spending my money on and how I can cut back and where I need to definitely just save my money.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing is that, as we just mentioned on that previous slide about prioritizing, that it's okay if you have areas that you want to spend money in, but maybe it's just like you don't realize how much you're spending in another area and you're going, I don't really think I should be spending that amount there. So prioritizing where that money is going. I think a great thing that we've included with it is that we have both a monthly workbook and then as well, we have an annual one that we've provided. And that will allow you to kind of start seeing those long-term goals that we're talking about, how year to year your budget relates to that savings. So any plan is great, but we have to make sure that we have the ability to adjust the plan. So as we're going, we want to make sure that we can tweak it a little. We can move some areas maybe up or down. Flexibility is important because if you create a budget that you can't stick to, you've already set yourself up to fail. And what we want to make sure is that we have some room to allow for change. This could be either because during our initial planning, we didn't take something into account, or because maybe we have an unexpected item that can arise. And that leads us right into building an emergency fund. Now, this is a word that a lot of people kick around a lot, and some people really get turned off by the idea of having to set aside 3 months worth of income. And because of that, they find it daunting and they just don't start at all. So one thing, there's a lot of statistics that are out there about what you need for an emergency fund or what kind of unexpected events you need to be able to weather and get through. But the important thing that I stress with everyone is that you need to start somewhere. And so if it's $500 or $1,000 in a savings account, you just want to make sure you have something set aside so that if the unexpected happens, you will be able to get through that situation.
So a long-term goal you would say would be to go back to my workbook, look at the living expenses that I've already added up and multiply that by 3 for an emergency fund.
Absolutely. And using that same workbook, you can also be able to start to see what items, if you had to remove, would you start to pull from that. So as an example, if you're looking at comparing your entertainment budget against your food budget, if you were in a situation where you were on a limited income situation or you having to use your emergency fund, suddenly those entertainment items might not be as important when compared to something like utilities or food. Now, this is a great section leading into what First Service can provide to you as our members about the right types of accounts to help you meet your financial goals.
So wait, just to back up for a little bit, what you're telling me is that there are more options available to me other than a savings account for budgeting? I thought that seems to be all I need.
That is one type of account, but I mean, as we see here, there are several accounts that you can use to be able to save and budget effectively, whether it be something like a checking account, a savings account, our money market accounts, or even our club savings accounts as well. And with this brief description here, we'll go ahead and just get into a little bit more in depth about what each one of these accounts does and how it will better serve you. So with your checking account, this will be your place to do your day-to-day spending. This is your budgeted items such as expenses, entertainment, anything where money is kind of coming and going, as it were. Moving next, we would see that our savings account, this is a place for us to allow for maybe some longer term savings, whether it be down payment towards a home or whether or not we're working on that vacation. For a lot of members, I will see where they open multiple savings accounts and they'll specifically go in and name them different things so that they might have one that's an escrow account or one that's a savings account for an education. And this way they have all those different ones in there and they know exactly what's going in to that specific savings account.
So can I name one of my savings accounts shoes?
You could, yeah. And then you know this is your budgeted amount for shoes. So for money market savings, this is something where you would have maybe a longer term savings here. This would be, it allows you to have the flexibility to be able to pull money out if you need it, but really by leaving the money in there, you're going to get a better dividend rate of return on it. And it's going to be a little bit more of an investment savings, as it were there. Our next type of account is our holiday club savings. And this will allow you to have deposits made into it either through regular deposits and direct deposit or just on a monthly transfer, and then build up that account throughout the year. The big benefit with this account is that on November 1st, the funds will release into your checking account, which puts it just in your hands when you need it for that last minute shopping you mentioned.
Wow, this account seems perfect for me. So basically, I can just have money taken out of my account. I don't even need to do anything. And on November 1st, it'll just be available to me?
Yep, absolutely. And then we'll transfer it right into your checking account. And if you have our rewards checking account, that leads us to our next pro tip, which is that you can then use those funds to make your purchases and earn points. This allows you to redeem your points for things like airline miles or merchandise, gift cards. We also even do cash back. So now, talk about some of the ways that we can actually track and prioritize this through our digital banking platform. You have the ability to see how your money is going out, whether it be to certain utilities or gas or restaurants. It's very easy now through a variety of ways to be able to search how you have income coming in or how expenses are going out and what those expenses are going towards. That will allow us to have a better control over where we see those items coming in on our budget.
So almost like a report card of my spending, basically.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I just worry about where will it all go? Hopefully we all pass. So now let's talk about sticking to your budget and some tips related to that. So when it comes to sticking to your budget, important aspects will be planning ahead, reducing your expenses whenever possible, and remembering that even when you slip up, it'll be okay. You just got to keep going. So planning ahead, having events like vacations or holidays that are coming up, you should be able to start planning for those things and setting money aside so that they don't just pop up at the last minute. As much fun as it is to take that random vacation and go to some far off exotic place, when the bills come for that, it can be a bit shocking sometimes. Another aspect is going to be shopping around for the best deals on regular purchases. And this might mean that you either are watching an item and looking for a good deal, or maybe if it's something that you regularly buy often, that you can start to see, hey, maybe if I buy this brand instead, I can end up saving some money in the long run. Set spending limits for yourself. This is important, and try to be disciplined so that when you overspend in one area, you might have to adjust somewhere else. So that's where it's important to know kind of what those spending limits are.
Kind of going back to watching pricing, I know there are a lot of apps available like online that actually do show you different prices in different areas. So to me, that's a way to kind of plan ahead.
Absolutely. And it's never been a better time as a consumer when it comes to the internet to have access to information. You can see historic price data, you can see reviews. It really allows you to have a lot of information at your fingertips. All right, and so as we move through, let's look at how we can use this to reduce expenses. I know for myself, as we had the events of COVID, I found myself not spending anywhere near what I was spending eating out. But I still wanted to not just eat the same thing all the time at the house. So I really took some time to learn what it meant to cook different things at the house and try different things, because suddenly I couldn't go to my favorite restaurant. And so it allowed me to save some money in some aspects, but also still get to experience that good food that I enjoy. For some folks, that might mean canceling a gym membership and working out from home and deciding if you can save enough money there, if that's something that's important to you. Also, be on the lookout for sometimes used items, refurbished items, generic products that aren't necessarily the name brand. There's times where you can save a little bit by going with the store brand shredded cheese over the name brand. And then, of course, always compare your prices from multiple retailers. And this circles back to that same thing you were just mentioning. You have a lot of information that's available out there on the web to give you different sources. Probably the most important thing is to keep going. If you run into a situation where you slip up, or maybe you don't plan accordingly, or your budget has a shortfall, that's okay. The important thing is to not let those things distract you from what you're working on, your long-term goal, maybe, not giving into those impulses. But if you do, you just gotta get back on the budget and start again. And so adjust the budget as you're going, because you don't wanna find yourself not enjoying what you're doing. You just wanna make sure that it's working for you. So to summarize, today we've identified our goals, right? We've talked about the importance of writing them down, determining our income, our expenses, creating and maintaining a budget plan, adjusting that plan as we go, building an emergency fund, using the appropriate accounts to help us meet our financial goals, planning ahead, reducing expenses, and the importance of just keeping at it.
Well, that concludes our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to Brian for all of the helpful tips that we hopefully all walked away with today to get started on our financial future. As always, we are here for any of your financial needs, so please feel free to reach out to either me, Brian Comeau, or any of our membership financial advisors. We look forward to seeing you again at one of our next webinars.